I would love to show you how to paint a sunset landscape scene inspired by the artist Scott Naismith. There's a list of supplies that we're going to use for this painting in the description. So first of all, I'm going to add some fluid medium to my canvas, and then I'm going to spread that around, and that fluid medium is also in the description of what I'm using, okay? But you can use any fluid medium. This is going to help your paint spread around really easily. So I'm going to add my primary yellow color, and then I'm going to also spread that yellow color around. Look at how easy it is to spread. If you don't have a fluid medium, you can also use like your inks. So if you have acrylic inks, that works great. Now I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm just going to pick up some of that yellow paint, and it's going to make it lighter in areas. This creates that nice glow wherever it's lighter where the yellow is. So make sure you cover your whole canvas. Now here I've just added a little bit of yellow with my palette knife just to show that there's a different texture. So right now I'm going to add in some grays. Now you make your grays by adding your primary colors together. So if you're adding your red with your yellow and your blue, you're going to get like this dark gray. For the underlayers, you want to have very fluid paint, okay? So I'm just adding that fluid medium to my paint to make it so that it just moves around, or you can use your acrylic inks, okay? So the underlayers, you want to have the fluid paint, but the overlayers, you want to be able to have use a palette knife and have a medium that's going to make it really peak and thick, okay? So I'm using my flexible modeling paste for that. And if you don't have that, you can just use your heavy body acrylics and it'll just be a little bit less thick. I'll have my primary colors mixed with my fluid paint and also the thick modeling paste. Now for the underlayers, if I want to add a lighter color, I'm mixing with gesso, okay? Now when I want it to not be transparent, the color to not be see-through, I'm using my regular titanium white, and see how that just stands on top, okay? This is really important to know for the layering process, okay? So we're layering very closely similar to how Scott Naismith layers his paintings, but he uses oil paints and we're using acrylics. So we have to change our acrylics to kind of act a little bit more like oils, okay? Layering in a similar way with transparent and opaque colors. So right now I'm just spreading some colors around, okay? Now I really don't have in mind what I'm doing or what I'm creating. I'm just getting some layers down on my painting, okay? I'm leaving the yellow in the center because that's where the sun's gonna be, and I'm gonna leave some yellow down below that. That's where the reflection of the sun's gonna be, but everything else can be covered with some grays or pinks or whatever's really like pulling you to add, okay? This is a great time to just practice making your warm and cool grays and playing around with your color mixing. Also going to be adding some blue in there. So I'm just taking my primary blue, adding some white, and putting it there next to, maybe that'll be the horizon line. I don't have a reference photo, but you can get my painting as a reference photo if you click up there at the right-hand corner, okay? But I'm not using a reference photo. I'm just kind of going with the flow and painting whatever's coming into my mind. I know that's kind of difficult for some people, so if you want to grab yourself a landscape reference or use mine, you're welcome to that. So this painting is going to go through a lot of formation, okay? So it's going to take me a little while to understand how I want the composition. But for this step, you can start painting the composition as you see it. So putting the dark areas where they should go and the light areas where they should go, okay? Because you have the reference photo or a reference photo. If you don't have a reference photo like me, you're just going to be using your emotions to place the objects, okay? Or your mind, your imagination, and just have fun and be playful with it. I'm going to work in the sky for a little bit. I'm going to be adding some grays and trying to understand like where do I want the darkest part of the clouds up there. And then I've decided where I want kind of a horizon line. But the thing with Scott Naismith's work is that he doesn't like to have a straight line across. So we're going to kind of just give a vague horizon line. Now, if you go and you look at his work, it's really beautiful. It's very colorful and it has bright saturated colors along with a lot of grays. Okay, so that's why we're doing this. That's why we're making a lot of grays with our paints. And mixing all those primary colors are going to give you a lot of variety. Okay, so I'm trying to create symmetry here. I'm going to add in a little bit of the gesso for a transparent white. Okay, and that's just going to create a little bit more of a glow, and that's where I want the sun. I want to concentrate on the sun being right there, okay, around that area. So in Scott Naismith's paintings, he paints a lot of conflict, a lot of contrast and drama. So I'm going to add that in with my black here, and I'm just kind of getting an idea of how I will want my painting to like where I want some of the largest shadow areas. Okay, so I'm still working on my composition. And notice how I'm using brush strokes like I'm going across, but I'm also using very square, chunky brush strokes, okay? So I'm trying to be loose and create very dramatic lines, okay? So curved, slanted, strong lines. And I don't know if I'll keep these in the end, but this just is giving me an idea, okay? So I've added my yellow with more yellow with my red and a little bit of blue and some white, and I've gotten the tan color. So I'm just adding in this tan color right there. For this step, it's going to look a little bit pieced together, okay? It's very rough. But what I'm looking at is, do I have a balance of the things that I'm doing, okay? So where I'm adding blue, I add blue below in maybe the opposite corner or down below it, okay? So now I'm going to start adding in some other colors to my sunset. And this is all about personal preference. You can make your sunset more on the pink side, or maybe there's mostly just yellow and blue. Maybe your sunset has a lot of orange in it or purple. Okay, this is all about personal preference. This painting, I'm giving you the steps, but I'm asking you to be creative. I'm not going to give you every brush stroke because that would take forever and it would stifle your creativity, okay? And Scott Naismith, his work is all about feeling and emotions, and you can't get your feelings or your emotions into your artwork if you're copying exactly what I'm doing. So I want you to kind of let go a little bit of having to have things exactly the way I'm doing it and just focus on creating balance. So where I'm adding some of the pink or the red in the sky, I need to add that down below. Use your reference photo as a guide. You don't need to be married to it. You don't have to make it look exactly like that because this is not a realistic painting. We are not going to get detailed. We're going to use colors that maybe aren't true to nature. I mean, they're going to have some bright colors in here that are brighter than what you see. And we're making those colors seem even brighter by adding in the gray tones, okay? So you have to have some of those subdued colors that are grayed down or muddied. That's another word for it. And then you need to have your bright colors that are more saturated. If you click on that top right hand corner, you can sign up to become a Createful Art member and have a full lesson on how to keep your colors saturated or dull them down. So we're still in the phase where we're adding in mostly fluid color, okay? It's mostly soft. But notice how the yellow around my sun and the yellow around the water, I've added in some palette knife marks, okay? So for this step, I want you to take your palette knife and I want you to add some of the colors more chunky, okay? So let me show you how I do that. So I'm grabbing my paint, that's the thick paint that I had added flexible modeling paste to, and I grab a lot of that paint and put it on my palette, and then I take that paint and I put it on my canvas, and I let it be chunky. I can also use my brush. I just add more color onto my brush, very, very thick, and put it in some areas. Okay, and I'm using my square brush. So I'm either using my palette knife or my square brush for the thick, chunky stuff, okay? And I'm keeping the thick paint around the sunset area, and I'm also going to put it down below where the sunset is bouncing off the water, okay? So now I'm going in and I'm going to work from soft to hard, okay? So I'm softening some areas and I'm leaving some areas very chunky or hard, okay? So I'm creating some kind of balance here, and right now I'm still kind of figuring out how my composition's gonna go, but you can see that I've created some mountains in the back that are separated from the sky, and then I've added some trees just a little bit closer, okay? And I've added a tree on the right, right? So I'm going in the direction of creating a forest landscape, maybe on a lake, or this is a very slow moving river. That's starting to come into my mind what I'm creating. So in my sky, what I've decided to do is add a lot of pink, okay? So I'm going that direction and I'm adding some blue in there, and that'll be the sky color shining through my sunset, and then I'll be adding mostly pink clouds, okay? So I'm experimenting a little bit with the orange there. I think I'm going to add a little bit of orange, but not a lot. I really like the pink. So you can just watch kind of how my sky comes together, where, you know, I start with my yellow area, I add the lighter blue down close to the horizon and a darker blue further away from the horizon. And I have I need to outline some of those mountains with either a light gray or the yellow of the sun, okay? And then I need those colors to bounce off the water, and they don't have to be exactly in the same location. This isn't a mirror image, so some of that pink and some of that orange is going to bounce off of this water, and I just need to add it somewhere, okay, down into that water. So things are coming together a little bit more. Now, this painting is all about layering, okay? So you're going to need to take time to layer your colors and layer your figures on there. So I'm adding a tree. If you don't have a tree in your reference photo, you don't need to do that. But notice how I take my brush and I just go vertical with it and then horizontal. And I'm not trying to make it look realistic at all, just a lot of blobs. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on creating the shadow area. So I have a lot of warm colors in there, and I don't have a lot of cool colors. So I need to have that balance and that contrast there. And I don't know if I'll keep a lot of that orange down below the trees right over there where I'm working, because I need to have some kind of stronger contrast to what's going on in the sky. And I need to have that darkness because this is a sunset and we're going to have this area of land have a lot of shadow, okay? Not a lot of light bouncing off of it. It's shadowed because those trees are blocking the light, okay? So I'm creating some dramatic lines. Now, with Scott Naismith's brushstrokes, he separates his brushstrokes with color. So they're very like his brushstrokes have shapes to them, okay? So it's very like almost geometric but irregular shapes. Okay, so that's the look that I'm trying to go for because I like that about his paintings. Now you can totally, I mean, it's not going to look exactly like his paintings, and yours aren't going to look exactly like mine because you're totally going to have different brush strokes. And honestly, this is the first time I've done this type of style, so it's not like I'm going to be perfect at it to begin with. You and I, we don't have to make our artwork look exactly like his artwork. We can just pull inspiration and pick out our favorite things about his artwork. So my favorite things are the bright bold colors. I love his brushstroke shapes, so I'm going to try to get that in there. Now I don't usually paint with those types of shapes, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to paint with a different brushstroke because I mean it's not my usual brushstroke, so I might overwork some area. I don't know, we'll just see how it turns out. It doesn't really matter. This is all just for fun and to be playful. So you'll notice that I'm starting at this point to really define my composition. Okay, so this is what my composition is going to be. It's kind of like a river going into a lake or a very wide river. It reminds me of Idaho and being up in the mountains in Idaho or Wyoming. That's what I guess is what was on my mind. I do miss traveling. We've been kind of stuck in our situation because of COVID-19. So usually we travel full time. So this is how I can keep traveling. I travel in my paintings. So right now I'm working on my sky. And I feel like there needs to be more drama there. I feel like it's kind of flat. So I'm going to use my brush and kind of create some swooping in my sky. I think it may need more dark colors. So maybe irregular shapes or some dark colors. So you know on the left there, the left bottom, I have a lot of darkness. So I think what needs to happen in my sky to create balance is up there in the right corner, I need to add some purple or dark color into my cloud. But for now, I'm going to start adding in some dark, maybe some red right here to create more depth, okay? I don't want it to be so flat. So even over there on the left where that cloud is, you know, it looked like a flat cloud and that's not what I want. So I'm going to add in some more layers and then probably add in some bright palette knife colors on top, like just get in some really bright saturated colors. I'm going to use my magenta straight from the tube and then my yellow straight from the tube for adding the colors on top with the palette knife. So now I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm going to add in some chunky paint right there at the bottom, okay? Because I've got chunky paint up there at the top in the clouds and then not a whole lot going on in the river. So I'm bouncing out a lot of things. I want to add that pink color bouncing off the water.
I think it's important to note that in the end, with my palette knife and some chunky paint, I ended up adding some of these colors straight from my tube. So I have this medium magenta, which is one of my favorite colors. So if you have like a favorite color to add into your sky or anything, you can go ahead and grab that. So I think that is kind of what he ends up doing, is he adds some saturated color on top with this palette knife. So this is what I used. I used a mix of cobalt teal in light permanent blue, vivid orange I didn't use, but that was something that you could, if you wanted to, over the top, kind of make it more orangey than pinky, which is what I kind of went with the pinks. But let me just kind of show you how that would play out for you if you wanted to add a little orange. Okay, then you could just add a little bit to your palette. Okay, and see how that becomes one of the brighter saturated colors in there. Okay, completely up to you on what colors you want to add. Like I said, if I add a little bit there in the sky I'll want to add just a little bit somewhere down here. Maybe even if it's just right in this area. Okay, so as you finish your painting, these are the final touches that you add on top, okay? Just gonna kind of go around that. All right, and it's all personal preference. I did add some metallic to my painting. That's just a personal preference. It's just something, if you want to do it, you do it, okay? So there's a couple of things that I'm looking for while I'm painting. I'm looking for the balance of shapes. So like this is really heavy right here, so I'm gonna create something a little heavier over here, okay? So I'm gonna just kind of darken this cloud just a little bit and make it a bigger shape, okay? And then I'm looking for a balance between the bold and the refined. I'm looking for a balance between the soft and the hard edges. I'm looking for a balance between shapes, a balance between light and dark. And I'm looking for a balance between saturated and toned down colors, okay? So I'm breaking up any lines of objects that are too obvious. I'm painting in sections or shapes of color, and I'm making the focal point around this sunset area, okay? So those are the things that I'm doing and I'm focusing on, and that'll help you to kind of understand like what do you need to change in your painting to get the focus to be, to get all those things correct to create a great composition, okay?
There are just too many brush strokes to give you every little brush stroke. So I hope that it helped to talk about balance and how to start out with your fluid paints and then add your chunky paints over, and how to kind of outline your composition or use a reference photo for your composition to help you. Okay? So in this last step, really all I'm doing is adding in more layers, and you need to take that time to add in layers and to look back at your painting and decide what it is that it needs, okay? Don't be afraid to be creative, and don't be afraid to create something that's unique to you. I think these are my favorite kinds of art lessons because I gave you the basic steps and I give you the basic like brush strokes and how you can accomplish a painting, but then I give you that freedom too to just think for yourself and to, you know, possibly go through some struggle, because it is through struggle that we learn the most. And your painting may not turn out the way that you want, but you have learned a lot in the process.
Go ahead and finish off with this step, and then once you are done with that, you are done with the painting. And sign your work and be proud. I'm so happy that you painted with me today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you want to learn more, go ahead and click right here for more art lessons that are going to help you become a better artist. And you also get to vote for tutorials in the future and get postcards, and there's a private Facebook community. There's so many things that you can enjoy by signing up to become a Createful Art member. So I hope that you do. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button. If you're already subscribed and you're not receiving information about my videos, you need to hit that bell next to the subscribe button so that you are getting notifications. I have some other tutorials that you can watch and learn from, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!